Good afternoon, everybody. I'm just going to do an audio check. If you can hear me, can you please say so in the chat box, whether that's a yes or a no? If you can hear me, please let me know if you can. All right, and responses are coming in. Yes, yes, and yes. All right, I appreciate you taking a moment to do that. Good afternoon, everybody, or good morning from wherever you are today. I'm excited to talk about our next YouthBuild AmeriCorps evaluation project, which covers the 2019-22 grant cycle, which is focused on the role and impact of community partners at a YouthBuild AmeriCorps program. We have some basic information that we want to provide you all about this study and what you can expect. Speaking with you right now is Matt Fisher. That is me. I'm the Senior Director for AmeriCorps here at YouthBuild USA, and we're going to have a guest presenter joining us in a few minutes. If you are new to our webinar format, and we are using a different platform than what we've been accustomed to through Zoom, I just want to let everybody know that all participants are being muted to keep the noise level down. This presentation is being recorded, so if you miss any part, we will send you a link to the recording should you want to review that, or if this information will be helpful to a colleague, you may forward that along. In addition, we have a chat box. Oh, I just got ahead of myself here and some polling questions. Hold on. We have a chat box, so if there are any questions, feel free to write that in the chat box. During different times, I will see what questions we have and bring them to the larger group. All right, so I do want to know where everyone is from, and I have a couple polling questions for the group, so I'm going to bring them right in. Hold on. Here they are. The questions are, where are you joining us from? The second question is, has your program participated in a YouthBuild AmeriCorps research study before? And do you recall what any of the past YouthBuild AmeriCorps research studies examined? So you should get a poll in front of you, and I'd like you to just take a few moments to do that. If you see the poll, just write in the chat box, yes, I see the poll. There it is, and some of the responses are coming in. So once again, 3 questions. Where are you joining us from? The Northwest, Southwest, Northeast, Southeast, Central US. Just trying to get a sense. Anyone calling from their car? The second question is, has your program participated in YouthBuild AmeriCorps research study before? And the last question is, do you recall what any of the past YouthBuild AmeriCorps research studies examined? And I'll just take another minute to see what responses folks had. There's a few other people coming into our conference. So we have some polling questions up. 3 questions. Where are you joining us from? Has your program participated in YouthBuild AmeriCorps research study before? And do you recall what any of the past YouthBuild AmeriCorps studies examined? All right, I'm gonna end the poll and share the results. All right, so it looks like the Central US is where most people are calling in from. Looks like all of our participants who participated in the survey have participated in our YouthBuild AmeriCorps research study before. That's wonderful. But not quite everyone is sure what our studies examine. Well, in today's presentation, we'll give a brief summary of what we have studied. All right. So moving forward, I'm going to go through these other polling questions. Hold on. This is just some slides. All right, great. So today's agenda is really, we want to make sure that all of our grantees who are part of our 2019 and 22 funding cycle understand that we have a AmeriCorps research evaluation, which is a requirement of all grantees, including YouthBuild USA as a national direct grantee. So we want to provide a little bit of context as to why we have to do these studies. I'm going to provide an overview of past studies, which have in them interesting findings that generally better inform a lot of our work. Then we'll provide a study overview for our next 3-year cycle, and then we'll follow through with next steps. And of course, if anybody has any questions, we will stop for that. To help things move along, I have a very brief video. As the video summarizes, the Corporation for National Community Service, the agency that oversees AmeriCorps, they are truly focused on making sure that their AmeriCorps grantees look at their program design and that there is measured impact over the course of a grant's life cycle. AmeriCorps grantees must also enhance and improve their program design through evidence-based research. One of the 2 ways that CNCS accomplishes this is by funding impact studies directly that look at the general impact AmeriCorps service may have on its over 75,000 AmeriCorps members annually. An example of one such impact study that they oversaw was focused on the impact of AmeriCorps volunteerism on careers post-service. In this general impact study, CNCS was able to demonstrate through evidence that 80% of AmeriCorps alumni said that serving in AmeriCorps benefited their career path, and where 42% of AmeriCorps alumni found employment within 6 months because of a connection they made through their AmeriCorps service. Besides executing these large impact studies, CNCS regulations require each of their competitive grantees to conduct their own independent research evaluation that tests the awarded program's theory of change/program design. Measuring the impact is a CNCS requirement of all awarded AmeriCorps grantees and something that needs to be planned for and executed each 3-year grant award period. Since 2004, YouthBuild USA has executed 5 of these studies. For those of you who attended our conference back in 2018, I went over our 5 studies to date. I also did that during our summer conference. I'm wondering if there's anybody on the phone who knows all 5 or 4 of our studies. If you happen to know a study, write it into the chat box. What have we looked at? Anyone? Bueller, anyone? Well, now's an appropriate time to give you a brief overview. One of our first studies that we did was back in our 2004-07 cycle that looked at the efficacy of education awards. that really examine the question of to what extent does the AmeriCorps Education Award impact interest and participation in post-secondary education activities of YouthBuild participants. Obviously, efficacy is the power to produce a desired result or effect. From that study, we realized that it showed that YouthBuild AmeriCorps members were significantly more likely to apply and be accepted to PSE institutions than those who completed the program as non-AmeriCorps members. And 51% of YouthBuild AmeriCorps members said that the AmeriCorps Education Award impacted their decision to pursue PSE just by earning that award. In 2007 to 10, we did an analysis of GED attainment. We particularly explored what does GED attainment look like at a YouthBuild AmeriCorps program? What does program structure look like? What are the best teaching practices? How are tests administered? What are students' barriers for learning? What are their motivations? From this study, we looked at different things. Some key findings were that programs that offered a high school diploma in addition to GED demonstrated higher performance outcomes, so providing choice within their education component led to higher achievement. Programs who had the GED component in-house versus with an external partner demonstrated stronger performance. Those are just two of the key findings from that one. In our 2010 to 2013 cycle, we did a quality assessment of YouthBuild AmeriCorps program. We particularly were interested in knowing, do students' perceptions of service change while in the program? And does it change their commitment to service, their connection to community, and civic engagement? And we were pleased that this study had findings where oftentimes young people saw themselves as service providers rather than service participants, able to help others on a larger scale, and encouraged to engage in service outside of the program model. Depending on the types of service opportunities offered, they generally could yield a deeper personal commitment to service and a more positive perception of how they are viewed by their families and community. And overall findings showed that participation in the YouthBuild AmeriCorps study program resulted in more positive attitudes towards service, community, and civic engagement. Back in our 2013 to 16 study, we conducted an evaluation which we needed to ask for an extension, so it really covered the period of 2015 to 17. Assess the impact of construction and non-construction service experiences in the YouthBuild AmeriCorps program. And so from that study, we looked at what are the impacts of construction versus non-construction service on YouthBuild AmeriCorps students. For example, do students gain a similar understanding of community need and connection to service and civic engagement through non-construction service? Does construction service result in any changes in motivation? From that study, we found that there are actually no consistent differences in program experience or outcome based on the different service tracks that our programs provide. However, despite these findings, the survey showed that program structure, context, and the overall integration of AmeriCorps likely had a bigger impact on the difference than the type of service. So not really what you offer, but the quality that's important. Lastly, in January of 2019, we completed our 2016 to 19 study, which looked at integrating service into diploma granting YouthBuild programs. That study asked the key questions: how is AmeriCorps service being integrated into diploma granting YouthBuild programs, and what does service in these programs look like? Are members in diploma granting programs as likely to complete their service as those in non-diploma granting programs? What are the differences in outcomes? And we found that obviously context is important, similar to construction versus non-construction. We actually found better success for those programs that provided choice, so those that had GED and diploma granting as an option, so high school equivalency, and generally those type of programs offered better, more enriching service opportunities. And that was just a brief summary. We have access to all of our written reports on our my.youthbuild.org AmeriCorps resource webpage. And at the conclusion of today's presentation, we'll send you a link. Now, here we are with 5 studies completed and a new recompete application that was due a year ago, where we were required to submit an evaluation plan for this next cycle. And this time last year, we started to ask ourselves at YouthBuild USA, what would we like to learn about when it comes to the impact of YouthBuild AmeriCorps? We were asking ourselves internally, is there an aspect to our work that we should try to understand more about, where study results could potentially provide a benefit to the field? From our conversations within the team at YouthBuild USA, and then having reached out to a number of programs who offered us some interesting information, we found something, an aspect to our YouthBuild program, which we realized we would be important to know more about, and that sites would benefit from learning. And that is related to the role community partners and the impact community partnerships play at our YouthBuild AmeriCorps programs, their impact on program implementation and member outcomes. And we all agreed that this would be a great area to explore. And I'm truly excited for what this study could potentially tell us. Plus, any of you who are on the phone who have played a role in our last 3 studies, we're pretty sure we can execute this one without having to conduct any pre and post-test member surveys. So, as a required element of the recompete application process, YouthBuild USA submitted an evaluation plan to CNCS that was reviewed and approved for this next grant period. Since all 2019-20 subgrantees will be required to participate in the study, it only makes sense for us to review the plan with you. For our next study, we are excited to partner again with the Heller School for Social Policy and Management at Brandeis University and work with Alan Melchior, who oversaw YouthBuild USA's last 2 studies and then also conducted our new profit YouthBuild study on post-secondary education. I truly enjoyed working with Alan and his evaluation partner, Susan Lansbury, because they have become incredible YouthBuild program experts. And they were actually originally recommended to us because of their extensive experience with CNCS program. Their base knowledge of both YouthBuild and AmeriCorps program has and will continue to be a resource to us as we move forward with our next study. At this point, I'd like to turn things over to Alan to walk us through the evaluation questions and our study timeline so you are all aware of what's to come. And Alan, your phone line should be unmuted.
That's what it says.
Great.
Does that mean you can hear me?
Yep, I can.
All right. Hello, everyone. I see a bunch of familiar names. I was going to say familiar faces on the participant list for the call. Thank you for joining in, and thank you for all the help that you've given us over the years as we've done kind of a variety of studies. I think the primary message for today is not only to kind of give a heads up that this is coming, but that I think that this study will be ultimately much easier on the sites than some of the previous ones. As you'll see, we're going to be asking questions of the programs and the partners, but we're not asking anyone to do participant surveys this time around. So you won't be getting these nasty emails and calls from us nagging you to catch up with your YouthBuild Corps members to get them to do a survey. But I do want to kind of reiterate some of what Matt said. You know, we were part of the conversations about what would be interesting, and it's just very clear that the various kinds of partnerships involved in YouthBuild are a kind of critical aspect of what makes YouthBuild so effective. And those partners in terms of service sites and training sites and work sites, partners in terms of colleagues in offering education programs, partners in terms of doing life skills, partners in terms of being sites for kind of secondary service activities and the like. So every YouthBuild program that we've worked with over the years has a whole network of relationships. And we thought that it was important, if we want to understand kind of where YouthBuild's going, to get a better handle on what those relationships look like and what both YouthBuild programs and the partners get out of being in those relationships. So when we put the design together, we translated that into, I think it's 5 questions. Matt, why don't you just click them down and we'll go through them. So the first part is really exploratory. What kind of partnerships are found across the network of YouthBuild programs? And then as we kind of, in a simple sense of who's out there and who are YouthBuild programs working with. And then kind of what's the nature of the relationship? What is the partnership doing together between YouthBuild programs and their partners? How and to what extent do the partnerships help programs and members succeed? So kind of what are the contributions that the partners are making that is special and particularly important for the YouthBuild programs? What are we getting out of these partnerships? And in turn, kind of how do the community partners benefit from their involvement in YouthBuild AmeriCorps? And that could range from simply a sense of community engagement to finding that this is a touch point for young people that might come and work with them, but a whole range of possibilities. And we thought it was important for partnerships to continue, there has to be some mutuality. So what are the partners getting out of this? And then what lessons can we learn about promising practices in establishing and maintaining strong YouthBuild AmeriCorps partners? What are we learning about what makes this process work? And ultimately, we will be using that information to kind of explore the implementation, the kinds of partnerships that are out there. And then to the extent that there are kind of clear patterns in terms of the types of partners or the roles that they're playing, we're also going to try and look at how that connects to the program outcomes using data from the YouthBuild reporting system. So to do this, we've got kind of a couple steps that are going to be coming up. Matt, why don't we get the next slide? So this gives you a sense of timeline, is that basically this fall and through the holiday season, we're kind of doing the groundwork. And there's a couple key things there. We're going to be drafting up several sets of surveys that we're going to be putting out. But we also want to set up a small advisory group to help us think through, are we asking the right questions? As we put the surveys together, are they clear and understandable and doable? How can we make this kind of as beneficial as possible? So towards the end of this webinar, you're going to get an ask from Matt if you're interested in being on the kind of advisory group to let us know. But the key data collection that's going to happen is in 2 parts. The first is going to be a survey to all of the YouthBuild AmeriCorps programs, directed probably to the program director or the key AmeriCorps contact, but basically asking at the program level for information about who your partners are and kind of what your experience has been, going back to some of these questions about what are the benefits, what are the kinds of activities that partners are involved in, what lessons are you learning along the way. We're going to take what we get from that survey, including kind of information about who the partners are, and then send a second survey to a sample, a subset of the partners who are identified, to again talk with them, find out from them more about how they see their role, what they see as the benefits, what lessons they've learned about kind of what does it take to partner with these YouthBuild people. So that's the major kind of survey data collection, and that's going to be happening essentially after in 2020, probably beginning in the spring and March with the partner survey, maybe even a little earlier, and then the second round over the summer and into the fall with the program partners. And as I said, what you don't see here is any kind of a YouthBuild member survey. So it's really focused on staff and partners this time around. As the surveys come in and we begin to get a sense of what the data looks like, we're then going to do telephone interviews with program staff and with a sample of community partner organizations. And I frankly can't remember the numbers that we said, but probably 10 or 20 organizations we're going to hope to get in touch and set up half an hour, an hour to again kind of explore the questions about what are the roles, what are the benefits, what are we learning about what works with partnerships. And that will take place kind of at the end of 2020 and into 2021. And as that data gets completed, August to December 2021, we're going to not only analyze what we've learned from those surveys, but we're going to look at the YouthBuild reporting system data and see, are there relationships between different kinds of partnerships and program outcomes for YouthBuild participants. And all of that comes together in a report by the end of 2021. So again, the key pieces are doing a program level survey so we can learn more about how partnerships play a role in YouthBuild programs, a survey of partners to get feedback from them on their experience and what they see as benefits, and then looking to see whether there's any kind of a relationship to be found between the different nature of the partnerships and the outcomes for YouthBuild members. And I think that's the major parameters. Maybe we should stop and see if folks have questions about that.
Yeah, Alan, there was a question that came in from one of our programs. It was asking, will this study only look at partnerships related to carrying out AmeriCorps service projects and not need to include partners related to other aspects of YouthBuild programming, such as education?
We're hoping to cast a broad net, and in fact, to find out and be able to draw some distinctions between partners who are involved in service projects and those who are involved in other parts of program operations. So the simple answer is we're looking at both, not just exclusively at service partners.
Great. I think that was the main question that came in. I do want to invite any other participants as questions come up, so please write them into the chat box. One of the things that happened this past summer when we presented this information to those that were in attendance at our August management conference is we broke into two different groups. And so we had one group, or one half of the room, which are, what are 2 to 3 program partnerships that your program values the most, and asking, as a table, like what makes them of value to the program. So I want to present that question to the group, have you think about that. The second question that we brought to the larger group, once again, we split into 2 different groups, was related to what additional questions should be considered for this study? What's missing based on what you've heard? What would you want to know about your community partners? So half of the room looked at partnerships at their program that they valued most. It was an interesting conversation, obviously getting in these small groups and having each one say, like, this is a great partner that we have, and this is the reason why. And of course, we had some interesting perspective as to the community partnerships and the value that they bring. I'm posing that question to you all, since you're all on part of this presentation. Why don't I share some of the results that came through in a summary format, because we collected these answers. So when looking at that first question, what are 2 to 3 program partners that your program values most? What makes them of value? Which was interesting. Here are some themes that we saw. So multiple sites talked about Habitat for Humanity being an incredible partner because their young people had a place to actually serve and do construction, and then they actually served alongside family members. Numerous programs brought that up. Other themes that were great was a United Way, housing authorities, partnering with town, city, municipalities, local conservation nonprofits. 1 or 2 programs talked about mentoring groups, such as 100 Black Men, which is a national mentoring group. There was workforce boards, area community colleges, Starbucks, neighborhood associations, a national nonprofit called Rebuilding Together, school districts, build-a-bed organizations. Those were some of the sort of multiple partners that came up when we asked that question. Now, when we said what made them of value, here are a couple of the themes. So a lot of these partners can provide a variety of meaningful service projects. So making sure that service isn't just happening for service sake, but actually has impact and meaning to the young people. Another identifying quality was training opportunities or internship opportunities that came through these partnership organizations that the program established. Of course, part of that is connection to major employers in the area. Some of the partners brought in additional resources, matching funds or in-kind match for either AmeriCorps and or their DOL grant was a huge another consideration that programs cited in our conversations. And then there was aspect to the service project or the partner itself being able to create teamwork and unity, making themselves feel a part of something bigger, and then a large community impact. Anyone, if you have any additional thoughts, please write them in the chat box. We'd love to include that in our analysis. Now, the second group from the conversations was like, what would you want to know about your community partners? And here are some of the thoughts that came up. So this sort of speaks to the question that Alan was talking about. So what separate types of partnerships? If we cast a wide net, often in our network, we throw out the term partnership, but let's define it. So one of the folks or tables was saying, like, what's a true collaboration or a collaborative partner versus a one-sided partner? What's only on paper, but actually, is a meaningful arrangement between us and a partner. So I think we have this opportunity to really help classify and define what makes a good partner based on these different criteria. In addition, what impact do partners believe they have? So not only we need to be able to reach out to our partners to know how their partnering with YouthBuild is having a benefit. What made them choose to partner with YouthBuild and AmeriCorps in the first place? How has working with AmeriCorps YouthBuild affected your relationships with other partners? Do you feel this is a mutually beneficial partnership? How does YouthBuild AmeriCorps support the mission of the partnering organization, and how can we help advance it? So I saw in a couple instances people wrote down mission alignment. What is happening? Is it aligned as different agencies? What partnerships are members versus the staff interested in, which I thought was a great perspective. And what is the total cost savings of labor for partners working with YouthBuild AmeriCorps, with YouthBuild programs? So excellent questions regarding what we want to know about our community partners. So since we provided an opportunity for our sites to bring up this input, if you have any additional comments or things that you would want to know about your community partners, we welcome that feedback. Alan, anything else to add from our conversations as groups or from reviewing those comments that came up?
No, I think just what struck me was that there's a lot of consistency in the questions people are asking, that people are interested in knowing the benefits for partners and how to make those partnerships work, as well as kind of what they're getting from the partners themselves.
Yep.
So the question of mutually beneficial partnership, I think, is going to be a really interesting one to explore.
Certain. All right. So our next steps. So we've gone over basically the questions, our tasks, our timeline, and we are diving into it. So as Alan sort of alluded to, the first step is we are going to be establishing an advisory group by December of 2019. And this is really a group of YouthBuild AmeriCorps staff who can help inform our survey questions, as well as help talk through and troubleshoot, getting surveys responded to by, directors as well as our community partners. So if this is of any interest to you, please shoot me an email. There it is, mfisher@youthbuild.org, to say you're interested in being part of it. I mean, I think it's relatively a light lift. I think we'll probably have 1 or 2 conference calls within the next 3 to 4 months just to go over information, and then we would loop you in. So it's really helping with our, getting everything organized and making sure that we're we're covering everything that makes sense to cover. Oh yeah, there it is. Help develop survey questions, identify types of community partners to target, and use your expertise to identify challenges and generate solutions. And then from there, YouthBuild USA will continue to keep sites up to date as to what is happening with our evaluation study through our regular conference calls. Obviously, Brandeis University and Alan and his team will have programs contact information, and we'll reach out to you all if there are needs to complete surveys or if there's a need for follow-up. So those are our next steps. Survey to follow YouthBuild programs, hopefully late winter of 2020, and then in the second half of 2020, reaching out to those community partners. So as this is a grant requirement, all programs are required to assist with this. We really, really are excited about what the potential of what this study could provide us as a larger network. I mean, really understanding what happens, or community partners, the benefits of community partners, how it impacts our program member and program outcomes. I think it's really interesting and exciting area of study, and I'm really looking forward to moving this along. So that is today's presentation. Alan, is there anything to add as we close out?
Just to say thank you to everybody for listening in, and hoping that folks will volunteer instead of being volunteered to be part of the advisory group. I've gotten a private message or two about worrying about overburdening staff and answering these surveys. So kind of the more involved folks are in the design, the better chance we have of coming up with tools that don't drive people crazy when we ask the questions.
Great.
So we'd love your feedback as we go along.
Great. So if anyone does have any questions, we'll hang on to the chat box for the next few minutes, so you can write them into the chat box. If you don't have any questions, I just want to thank everyone for your time today, and we'll be in touch regarding all next steps with this study. So thank you very much, and have a great afternoon. Bye.